Um, Thank you for joining us for our annual end of year celebration Zoom edition. And Carolina, if you don't mind saying a few words on behalf of the Interfaith Encounter Association, that would be wonderful. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. It's really a pleasure to be here. So for those who don't know me, I'm Carolina. I'm the Community Director of Interfaith Encounter Association. We are a nonprofit apolitical organization. We organize many different interfaith groups, some of them by ourselves and some of them in cooperation with other groups such as the Debate for Peace. And to be very honest, Debate for Peace has a very special place for me because I myself was part of UN simulations during my graduation. But I think only when I met this project, I realized how powerful it is, the whole play-in and simulation has in practicing our empathy muscle and putting ourselves in the place of someone else's shoes and understanding how someone else thinks. And I'm really amazed by this project. I'm very, very happy to be here. And also I was in other sections also with debates and also with the empathy storytelling. And I'm very, very glad to see how to see everything wrapping up now at the end. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. And now I would like to go to the U.S. Embassy Counselor for Public Affairs, I guess just arrived.
That's right.
Miss Joe, is it Works?
Weirix, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, so I won't go through the whole CV, but you've served in Pakistan, India, Belgium, and Turkey, and I probably missed a few other countries. And I hope that we will be meeting you in person really soon.
Yes, I mean, naturally, I look forward to meeting you in person and holding events like this in person as soon as we can. But kudos for keeping it going. To everyone on the line, it's great that despite the times we're in with COVID and the limitations that's imposed, that Debate for Peace and related activities have been able to keep going. It makes it harder sometimes. There are, as you mentioned, technical difficulties sometimes, but it's absolutely worth keeping the momentum going. And yes, in future, I hope we'll all be able to get together in person. But until then, let's keep up the good work. And as you mentioned, I'm newly arrived. This is one of my very first engagements since I arrived in Israel 2.5 weeks ago. So I'm only fresh out of quarantine, having arrived at the only 17 days ago. So it's a real honor to be here. I wanted to thank you, Carolina, for your opening remarks, and Dr. Stolov. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your welcome, and to everyone on board. It's great to be here for this closing or final Debate for Peace event. As I was thinking about what I might say today, something occurred to me, a memory, and I can't believe it only just came to mind. But when I was in high school, I was a debater myself, which is why I was really glad to be able to join you today. And I did Model United Nations, and every year, my school, we would represent the state of Israel in my region's Model United Nations program. And when I look back on my experience in doing Model United Nations or doing debate, I realized the learning experience as a young person when you're engaging in this activity is when it finally dawns on you what it is that makes you successful as a debater, what makes you successful as a storyteller, what makes you convincing, what makes it so that you're able to command an audience and win the respect of the person opposite you in a debate. And it's not about mastery of facts. It's not about who can talk the fastest. It's of course about empathy. And Carolina, the magic word you used. It's the ability to put yourself in your opponent's shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody who you know is holding a different position than you. And seeing the world through their eyes so that you can present your own argument in a convincing manner. Well, I mean, that's empathy. Likewise, to tell a story in an engaging way, you have to put yourself in the position of your listener, of the audience. If you're not there, if you're not in their shoes, then you're not going to be able to connect. So activities like this, where debate, storytelling are at the heart of it, really, when we boil it all down, it's about empathy. It's about breaking down barriers, and it's one of my favorite kinds of activities. And so I'm delighted that I could join you today to hear from your program participants. And that's really what I'm here for today. I don't want to take much more time talking, because I'm here to hear from the young leaders that we have assembled today. I want to hear about your great work and hear your stories. And I want to learn from you. So thank you. I'm honored to be able to be with you. And as this is one of my very first activities here in Israel, I feel like what I'm going to learn here and see here and experience here is just a great launching pad for me for the next 3 years of my assignment here at the U.S. Embassy. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. So it's been obviously an interesting year, challenging year, but also a year of accomplishments, and that's what we're here to celebrate. With the help of so many people, we held dozens of in-person meetings, volunteering sessions, visits to a dozen embassies, meeting with academics. We held MUN conferences, delegations. Once again, we had high school and even junior high school students participating in university level conferences and winning awards. Abroad, we met with the foreign ministries of Sweden, the Netherlands, the embassies of Ecuador and Kosovo in the UK, the American Embassy in Sweden, the US, EU, and Cypriot missions to the UN, UNICEF, UNAOC, the Swiss Embassy, the US State Department, and the US Institute of Peace in DC, along with over a dozen different Jewish and Muslim communities. We presented in synagogues, mosques, and at the UN itself, which was first for our students. Since February, of course, we've operated fully online. We've held dozens of events with debates, guest speakers, professors of politics, international law, diplomats, and activists. And most recently, we've been working on the empathy storytelling project, which you will soon hear. So it's been a lot of different achievements and a lot of different kinds of achievements. These efforts are thanks to your support and participation. There's over 10 countries, I think, already represented here. Many of you have taken an active role, and especially, of course, thanks to the U.S. Embassy and Risa Levy for everything that you've done to support us, to support the students. But I think there's no better way to learn about this, besides for going on a delegation or participating in a conference, than to hear from the students and the participants. So I want to first ask 3 students and 1 teacher who have been on the delegations abroad this year to speak, share briefly about their experiences. After that, we'll hear some music, and then we will hear from the Empathy Storytelling Project. So Yara, why don't you go first and speak about the trip to Mama, and then Shahaf will speak about Oxford. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Hey everyone, my name is Yara Qbaish. I'm a 17 years old high schooler from the north of Israel. This is my 2nd year in Debate for Peace, and I couldn't be more grateful for all the opportunities. Last November, I decided to join the Swedish delegation and participate in the MUN conference. It was such an unforgettable and enriching experience. Each and every memory I remember and hold in my heart had a very meaningful value for me and my friends from the delegation. One of the most different things that I have ever done in my whole life was the Shabbat dinner we had. I even had the opportunity to read a part of the Kiddush itself, and I think this was something that I would never have the opportunity to be in beside going to this delegation. Me and my friends all thought at the same time that peace is possible because of this experience, because we had Jews, Muslims, Druze, and even Christians in the same dinner for a special ceremony for Jewish people. This has made us think that it's possible for us to live all together and be all happy and peacefully together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yara. And Shahaf, why don't you go ahead and say something about Oxford?
I've been to a couple of delegations, one of which was Oxford. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's great now. Go ahead.
All right. Basically, when we were in Oxford, the thing that I considered very special is we met with a special imam in a very special mosque, and he started talking to us about Islam feminism and how the hijab is mentioned in the Quran, and started talking to us about things we didn't know that Muslims actually take great interest in. And then we actually met his wife, which was a Christian, an evangelist Christian, which got us all wondering. And I just keep learning new and gaining new experiences from these trips, and learning about different religions, which is very interesting for me, as I'm Jewish, and that's pretty much all I know. And I gotta say that we meet a lot of very interesting and different people on our trips, and one of which was this imam. And a lot of people had like many debates with him, because some people agreed, some people don't. And I gotta say that all trips are like this. It's basically expressing different opinions and letting everyone else know what's our opinion and accepting theirs as an existing opinion. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Shahab. So Hassan, I was really lucky to have Hassan join me for the Yale delegation this year. Hassan, do you mind saying a few words about how that trip was for you?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's good to take part again in one of the Debate for Peace activities, and thankful for Debate for Peace, in particular Stephen, as well as Risa Levy, the U.S. Embassy. It's been stunning. So just a little bit about myself. I come from a unique location, Golan Heights, and then I moved to Haifa, studied there. I did my BA studies in English and Arabic language and literature, and then I moved to Beersheba in 2014. And I've been teaching English in a Bedouin community for the past 6 years. Then I really came to understand the power of communication and having intercultural meetings between my students and the outside world. And that's how I started getting involved in Debate for Peace. So I contacted Stephen, and gradually we started kind of like working together. The whole thing. I've been really privileged to take part in a lot of activities, not only in the country, but abroad. The delegation that I would like to speak about is the delegation to Yale University in Connecticut. So we had, I think, 8 students, Stephen, right, coming from different spots from all over the country. And what is really, really special and meaningful to me is that very fact of having students, young students, standing up and competing with the whole world. From an educational point of view, I do believe that communication should not be taken for granted. I don't take it for granted, and that is one of the meaningful moments I've came to see back there. So one of the students that participated in Yale University was basically my cousin. I think he's around. His name is Mustafa. We were born pretty much in a bubble. It is a village exactly at the borderline between Israel and Lebanon. It was originally Syrian. So we didn't quite, in my childhood, see the outside world. We didn't communicate a lot. So seeing him as one example of a young student communicating with others, not only Israelis coming from different cultures, different social norms, different religious backgrounds, but also with different cultures from around the world, that was absolutely inspiring to me, because that was a thing that I couldn't fulfill when I was a teenager. Really, the communication might be or might sound something that is trivial, superficial for some of you, but seriously, I do believe that communication has the power of seeing the world from different insights, trying to communicate with others, not necessarily agreeing with your worldview. That is the most powerful thing in Yale University. Other than that, it was just fun to see all the young students from across the country talking together, having fun, learning from each other, and that was just going to establish some sort of connectivity, sense of community in between students themselves. So that is pretty much it. I'm happy to share more and take questions if possible, Stephen. And thanks, Stephen, for the opportunity. I learned a lot, and I look forward to more delegations to the States.
Thanks, Hassan. And Mayan, why don't you speak about the Hopkins delegation? Our last chance to meet in person and travel abroad. Mayan, did we lose you? Well, I see Mayan, but I don't hear her. Shadi, are you ready to go? Yes. Okay. So Mayan, if you can hear me, please get in touch. I'm going to ask Shadi to play Mountainy, and then I'm going to ask Oren to play Hatika.
So it's my
Thank you so much, Shadi. And Oren, are you ready? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Oren. Mayan, are you good now?
Yeah, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, hi, I'm Mayan Dahan. I'm 16 years old. I'm from Ibn Yehuda. It's like near Netanya, if you guys know where that is. I've been going to MEN conferences since 8th grade, so that's like 3 years, and I've attended 15 conferences since then. Back in February, I attended the Johns Hopkins MUN conference, and it was one of the most educational and meaningful experience I've had this year. I mean, even if the last 2 years, if I barely count this year. But even though as a delegate attending a conference, you'd expect me to remember and enjoy the conference more than anything else. And the trip before surprised me and helped me create meaningful experiences and friendships that I just did not expect. Like, for example, I remember frantically running around with a group of like-minded teens wearing suits and heels to each meeting, eventually arriving to each one with interest and motivation to listen to what is being said. I mean, that determination to learn as much as possible was so inspiring. Moreover, I learned that the group was so diverse that I learned lots about the reality we live in just by having a conversation with a fellow delegate on the subway ride. Like those little moments helped me open my eyes and made Johns Hopkins MUN conference like more than just an international conference. I remember it as an experience that opened my eyes to the fact that there are more people that live here in Israel and they're different than me. And it's just spending that much time with people that come from different places, even in the same country, it really opens your eyes. And I just remember that very well. It has a place in my heart now.
Thank you, Mayan. So we'll go now to the Empathy Storytelling Project, which is 8 amazing students who worked in pairs to learn each other's stories and have now spent several weeks sharing them. So is Michal on the line? Okay, so
no, Steven, Michal is in class in Holland.
Okay, so
I tried.
So Luna, can you try and let's see if it works?
Hear me?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. So can you see me also? Because like I'm connected from 2 devices. I have an internet problem.
It's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Luna Bionis. I'm a Muslim Palestinian citizen of Israel, and today I will be representing Michal family's story. Michal is 18 years old. She has a Spanish passport, Venezuelan background, and she was citizen of Mexico before moving to Israel, to a place she will live in a huge Jewish community and learn for free. When I first entered Michal's father, Jose, he told me about his from letting Michal to go alone to Israel because he and his wife were very afraid about her since they also faced many risks in Venezuela, their home country, the place they lived in 2007, moving to Israel. They wanted a good life for them and their daughter, far away from the crimes and the risks that they faced. And one of the main motives was kidnapping Michal and her father from a cooking lesson. Of course, it wasn't easy for anyone leaving Venezuela and leaving their family, friends, and home to getting used to life in Mexico with new people, new tradition, and new culture, and also differences in the spoken language, although it's still Spanish. Mr. Jose told me once Michal was in her friend's house, and she didn't know that these differences in the language existed. And she said in the Venezuelan Spanish, the word banana has cambur, but it had a different meaning in the Mexican Spanish, that it was called platano, and no one understood her. Actually, Michal family's situation is not the first or the last one. Many people are migrating from Venezuela to find a better life for them and their children. Comparing Venezuela in 2007 to now, Venezuela was a paradise, taking into consideration the economic and social crisis that mainly started in 2010. And also, comparing Mexico to Venezuela, Mexico will always remain a paradise. Also, because of the opportunities and the security they had in Mexico. Also, Mr. Jose told me that once he arrived in Mexico, he got a job and support from the government. But on the contrary, he will never feel like a normal Mexican. Mexicans think that Venezuelans are violent and poor, but it's just like a generalization that many migrants are facing. And I knew that these generalizations are existed. Many migrants are faced in their daily lives. So I asked Mr. Jose, as a Jew who lives in a huge Christian community, if he feels discriminated. But on the other hand, he told me that he does not discriminate. He celebrates the holidays and Shabbat always, and he feels more belonging to the community. Finally, Mr. Jose, who lived his whole life in a communist community, he emphasized that he supports capitalism. He supports that everyone deserves to work hard to get what they worked for, and liberally with freedom of life, and freedom of speech. I want to thank Michal and her family for this opportunity to discover their story and to know more about the Venezuelan crisis that I never learned about it before. And I'm very grateful about this opportunity from Debate for Peace to participate in this program that improved my storytelling and listening skills. And I'm very happy also I learned more about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from the perspective of its citizens. Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Michal.
Hi. So first of all, hi from the Netherlands. Sorry for not joining before I was in class. And well, I'm going to tell Luna's story. And well, you all know me. My name is Michal Mizrahi. I'm 17 years old. I'm originally from Caracas. I spent a lot of time in Israel. And now I'm studying here in the Netherlands. First, I want to introduce a little bit of Luna. Luna is the friend that I interviewed. She's a Palestinian citizen from Sachin in the north of Israel. And well, of course, first I want to thank Steven and the Abu Yunis family for all the support that they gave me, specifically Mr. Abed, who is Luna's, the brother of her grandfather, and who told me this story in such an emotive and nice way. Well, this story is being told by him and not by Luna's grandfather because sadly, may he rest in peace, he passed away 4 years ago. And well, this is his story. Mr. Abed Abu Yunis was born in Sachin in 1939. He's told me the story of the Nakba Day. He remembers himself a 9-year-old boy walking barefoot with his widow mom, 5 brothers, 1 sister, heading to the north, going to Lebanon. His father was killed in the hands of the Jewish soldiers, and Sachin, which was in the north, as I've said previously, only had one nearby country, which was Lebanon, and the only country they could escape to. All the news about the other towns reached Sachin. The houses that were destroyed in the neighboring area with Sachin included Miar and El Barwa, and the citizens there were displayed. His mother, Sara, didn't think it twice. She knew a catastrophe was going on. And she was completely right, because soon after that, war started. He feared about her children and decided to emigrate to Lebanon immediately. When she reached the borders of Lebanon with nothing in her hands, only the clothing in their bodies, and her children hand by hand, she walked many kilometers and finally reached the borders. But then something happened. All the mayors of each town followed the citizens and told them, please come back, we will stay here. No one will destroy our houses, and we will stay under the occupation and fight. When in that moment, 254 Arab villages were occupied, thousands of people were killed, and many houses were destroyed and families were dispersed. Before the occupation, Mr. Abed remembers that many Palestinian Jews were living together with Muslims and Christians. But then the occupation started, and the British started training the Jews that came to use guns in order to occupy the land and make a Jewish land for their own. When Mr. Abed grew up, he worked hard to help his family, considering he was one of the big brothers of his family. He had to work to sustain his family together with his brothers. He worked as a gardener for a Jewish family, and he stayed in their houses too. Jobs were scarce since Sakhnin had an overpopulation. It was a city the size for 10,000 people, and it had a population of 35,000. After the independence war, the environment around Sakhnin was very hard. People's financial situation was not good. A lot of children were orphans, and many women had lost their husbands. The biggest support of their family, which made things harder for them. Surprisingly, he studied in a Jewish school. His mother wanted him to have a better level when it came to studies. He said that sometimes he felt discriminated since he was a minority and he was different from most of his group. But moreover, he actually felt included and thankful to get better education than most of the Arab population, as he knew this was a privilege. He said that racism has existed everywhere, but not all the people were racist against the Palestinians, contrary to what almost most people would think. Saying, the months I worked for a Jewish family and stayed for their house were one of the best times of my life. I felt accepted and felt included and welcomed by the family I was living with. As for now, he believes in peace. No matter how much things have changed and how much racism has increased, he believes that we can change the way our society works. He tries to preach love and peace to his family, as he knows that there is no future for our land with all the hatred still buried deep down inside. Meanwhile, me and Luna are waiting the time to meet up since sadly Corona stopped us from doing so, and now I'm here in the Netherlands. We can't wait to tell each other our stories face to face, since the spread has brought us so much closer and has accentuated our similarities and made us accept our differences. Thank you, Luna, for taking me as part of your family and helping me grow so much during these months.
Thank you, Michal. So I'll go straight to Yoad, and then Shadi will go after.
So hi guys, as you might not know, but I have a bit of a technical issues. So if I stop for any reason, I'm so sorry for that. Hi, my name is Yoad. I'll be 18 in a few days. I'll start my military service also real soon. So yeah, and I'll be representing the story of Saad's family, the family of Salim Azam from Nazareth. Saad comes from a Christian background, and so Salim is also Christian. Salim is his great-grandfather, the grandfather of his mother. So our story begins with a family in the area of Haifa that had a few failed pregnancies, and Salim was the first child to actually survive. There was a story and there was a belief inside the Christian community in that time that any baby that survives after a few failed pregnancies must be hanged from a whale, and by that the curse upon the family will be eliminated, and the babies after that are supposed to survive. That actually worked, and after that the family has had a few more children who were blessed inside the family. Salim was the only son, was the eldest son in a family of no girls, which also means he was the helper of his mom. Taking that part, his family was in a very, very poor economical situation. So in 5th grade, he had to leave school to help provide for his family for being the eldest son. He started to work for the Iraqi petroleum system, who was active in Israel and Palestine at that time, which was during the British Mandate. So yeah, he was working and as a messenger boy, which was a role that was usually dominated by kids his age that worked for the company. He was very interested in the Morse code. The Morse code, as you know, is in English, and since he left school at 5th grade, he didn't have the basic knowledge. So he decided to continue and study by himself about the Morse code and the English language, and so he perfected it, and Fortunately enough for him, one day one of the managers understood that he was learning and staying after hours to practice the Morse code. And so he managed to get a job as a Morse code messenger that helped his family in a great deal. Something else that is very interesting about Salim is that he was a passionate musician who had many famous friends that helped him perfect the oud, which is an instrument. He was so passionate about it. There's actually a very funny story about how he was so passionate that he didn't listen to his mom, and his mom got angry at him for not listening to her and continued playing the oud. So yeah, he married Fayrouz, the grandchild of the priest of Nazareth, of Yafia of Haifa, which is a city near Haifa. They got married. They were also both very passionate about music. A year later, Fayrouz got pregnant, and that was the start of the Nakba. When the Nakba in Haifa started, Fayrouz had her first child, and so Fayrouz's mother came over and took Fayrouz and her grandchild quickly to Yafia of Nazareth, of Haifa, to keep them safe. Salim didn't know what was going to happen, and so he decided to stay. He thought, okay, for a few days, nothing's going to happen. But little did he know that all the Arabs that were in Haifa at that time were deported to Beirut. He managed to escape and to Yafia and took his wife and his child with the aid of his mother-in-law. They moved to Nazareth. In Nazareth, they had a very important thing that Salim, a very important hobby that Salim took upon himself that saved them. I'll give you a bit of background about Nazareth at that time. All the cities around it were demolished to the ground, El Foulier and other cities all around it. Nazareth, that was a Christian city, got the help of the Vatican, and so with the help of the Vatican, they were able to make the army not destroy Nazareth to the ground. So the community there was under military law until 1960, and through that, it was very hard for the community to continue on acting. Salim has also taken upon himself a very interesting hobby. He decided to be a photographer. Now you might ask yourself, how is this hobby connected and how could this hobby actually help them? Well, in 1950, the Israeli ministry has decided that all the Arab citizens will need to get their ID cards. Salim was the first Arab photographer. He was actually the one who took pictures of my grandmother's civics teacher, the grandmother of my civics teacher's wedding party. So he was very known all around the Arab community for being the first Arab photographer. And so that was something that saved him from poverty and life of unknown. His wife and his kids have continued to grow, and they moved into bigger apartments throughout time. Salim was known as Fadl Nabil after his studio. That was the name of his studio. Salim, unfortunately, has passed away. His children live both in Israel and all around the world, including in the United States. His brothers who were sent away from Israel are currently living in Chicago and the rest of the United States. Unfortunately, I have no more battery left and I have no electricity in my moshav, so I will need to end here. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Thanks, Yoad. And Saad, go ahead.
Thank you, Oz, for telling my family story. I'm Saad, Palestinian living in Nazareth. I'm currently now in the West Bank. I don't have the best internet, so you should expect some connectivity problems. I will be telling today the story, Moreno family story. I will be telling the story of Maurice and Leonore, Yoad's great-grandparents, his nono and nona, the parents of his grandmother from his mother's side. Leonore was born in September 1920. the only child to Itzhak and Esther ben Dahan. Her father died when she was only a few months old, so her mother Esther was born in Saloniki during the fascist period, in which it was very dangerous for Jews to live there. Because of that, her mother, Luna Corral, got for her two daughters and herself tickets to Alexandria. Esther's sister didn't survive the journey, and unfortunately, the rest of the family that didn't manage to escape and stayed in Saloniki didn't survive either, and many of them died in a great fire that happened over there. When Leonore was 7, her mother Esther died, and her aunt, who lived in Alexandria, has destined her to marry off to an old rich man. Fortunately, Nono's family has saved her and brought her into their home and raised her just like their daughter. Maurice and Leonore were married on the 28th of June 1941. Leonore was a stay-at-home mom, and Maurice was a CFO of the Sicorel Corporation. They lived a very comfortable life, and being part of the Sicorel family group made them well known around Alexandria. They lived in Camp Chazar, a high-end neighborhood in Alexandria. Yoav's grandmother's cousin, Simona Ifrach, who lived in the house, said, "The house was more like a castle. There were 12 bedrooms, maids, cooks, drivers, a big garden, and even a beachfront view." In the 40s, with growing tensions between Arabs and Jews, Arab countries feared that their Jewish citizens would side with Britain and the Zionist movement in taking part of Palestine. Because of that, violence against Jews was beginning to be more visible. Maurice decided to have the Jewish community escape. His mom used to say, "Wala ya Maurice, جيب لي الجلطة," which translates to English, "Wala ya Maurice, don't give me a heart attack." Something close to that. Knowing that any acts of Zionism and support of Israel will be treated with being in front of a judge, getting expelled, or even worse. In 1945, the situation worsened for the family, with the public opinion being against Israel, and Nasser, the future president of Egypt, going in the streets voicing anti-Zionist statements, giving that Maurice was helping Jews migrate to Egypt, and given that he was a Zionist himself, the family was in great danger. The staff in the house started to stand on the front lawn of the house to make it seem like the family who's living there are Muslims. Simona, his grandmother's cousin, was almost kidnapped in the market. Fortunately, her Muslim nanny saved her. In 1948, Nono and Nona decided, "We're leaving Egypt for Marseille tonight." They didn't tell anyone in fear of getting caught trying to escape. They took their jewelry, nothing else, and didn't tell anyone. They lived in Marseille for 2 years before arriving in Israel. Maurice, who spoke 6 languages, got a job as the deputy of the manager of the refugee camp in which he lived. In Israel, they lived in Bir Saba, which Israel occupied earlier that year and expelled its people. Life in Bir Saba wasn't easy for them, especially because they came from an Arab country. They had to live in tents for years with no electricity, water, or sewage system. In their house, there were 6 children: Leonore, Maurice, and Maurice's mother. Maurice worked several jobs at a time to keep everyone fed. They even took in kids from the street who didn't have parents and treated them as their own. Even when the family itself lived in abject poverty, they were never hesitant to help other people. Nono died a month after paying off all of his debts in 1976. Nono kept on their legacy. She sadly passed away on the 2nd of January, 1997. Thank you.
Thanks. Tal, go ahead.
So hi everyone, my name is Sara. I'm 17 and I'm gonna present Sanabel's family story. So her grandparents were born here in Israel/Palestine before 1948, and just a little bit before 1948, the government and the IDF decided to occupy the Negev. So her grandparents lived in the Negev, so they had to move to a different place. And they didn't know what to do, but they decided to move to Jordan for a couple of days. And after a few days, they decided to return to a village in like the land of Israel that's called El Arakib. But the army and the government decided to expel the people from there. And it wasn't the first time that this village was destroyed. It was the 169 times that this village was destroyed, and they tried to rebuild it every time. And so they didn't know what to do. They were really confused because, like, her grandfather, Swilon, he was the owner of this village. So the Israeli government took 60 dunams of the land and left him just 12. And it was really upsetting. He was really upset of on the Israeli government, and he decided to move with his family to Rahat. It's a Bedouin village in the south of Israel, and now they live there with the whole family. And her grandmother, she's 94, and she's still alive. Her grandfather, he passed away, and her grandmother liked to sing, and she's really a grateful woman. And her grandfather, everybody liked him, and that's it.
Thanks. Amir? Go ahead.
And all right. So hi everyone, my name is Sara. I'm 15 years old. Today I'm going to be representing Oren's family's story. So basically, Oren is a Persian Israeli Jew. He loves to do kiddush every Friday, and he loves to eat gondi and chorish, which is a Persian traditional meal. Sorry. He also has so many Persian carpets in his house. His parents met in Israel after each one of them moved from Iran to Israel with their family. His father moved to Israel with his parents and his two brothers 10 years before the Iranian Revolution because Oren's grandfather Mordechai felt that something bad would happen in Iran. So yeah, they moved immediately. And his grandparents, his mother's side, moved to Israel separately, which his grandmother Lida decided that she can't stay in Iran while the Iranian Revolution in 1979. So she took a flight to Greece with her 3 kids, including Oren's mom, Catherine, and then they flew to Israel because there was no direct flights from Iran to Israel. So yeah. But Oren's grandfather Elias decided to stay and to take care of his plastic company, which he loved most. In 1980, Elias decided to buy a giant machine to his company. But the machine accidentally fell while delivering it to the company. And guess what? It accidentally fell over a police officer. Unfortunately, that police officer, one of Elias' closest friends. After a few days, one of Elias' friends told him that the government has a death warrant for him. So Elias sold his company to his friends for helping him to escape the land. After he escaped, he reunited with his most loved family that he loved most, They rent an apartment next to Lida's aunt, and she helped them to integrate by helping them to get out of the shock of the immigration and with the language and with jobs and more and more. Now, Elias is not just a father. He's a grandfather for 6 children, including Oren. He owns a little store in Tel Aviv, and he's grateful for his life. He will always have that peace in his heart for his company and his homeland where he spent most of his childhood and his life. Thank you all.
Thanks. And Oren, go ahead.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yeah, it's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So hello everyone. My name is Oren. I'm 17 years old. I live in Netanya, and I am a Jewish Persian Israeli. And I will be telling Amir's story. Amir is a 15-year-old Arab Muslim Israeli who comes from a religious Muslim background. Fasting the Ramadan, keeps halal, enjoys reading the Quran, and likes to eat traditional Arab food, such as maklube and shish barak. Amir lives in Taibe with his mother Rose and his sister Sara. He lives without his father, since his mother decided to divorce her husband when she was pregnant with him. Rose met her husband while she lived in Taibe and he lived in Gaza. Amir's father lived in Israel only thanks to his wife, who was an Israeli citizen. So when they got divorced, Amir's father returned to Gaza and never came back. Amir never had a chance to meet his father. Rose decided to divorce her husband and has not seen him again. Amir's father tried to contact him and his sister, but they never tried to reach him back. For Amir, his father is like a stranger. Amir never had a chance to talk to his father. Amir never have seen his father, never talked to his father, and never even heard his father. So today, he has nothing to talk to him about, and no interest to contact him at all. When Rose decided to divorce her husband, her family did not take her divorce well, especially her mother, Amir's grandmother, who was mad at her for doing such an inappropriate act. Amir's mother knew that her decision will have consequences, and she knew how her family might react. But she decided to do what's best for her, and fought for what she felt. Rose's story is a story of a brave woman who decided to do what's best for her, regardless of what her friends and family might think. Till these days, many women, especially in the Arab community, has no say in their lives. They have to obey to whatever they're being told to do, and they believe in whatever they're being told to believe in. Rose decided to be more independent and to be more open to the world outside of her community. And when I look at Amir, I see the values that she taught him. Amir is a wise young man who strives for peace. In addition to debate for peace, in which teenagers from all over the state of Israel, Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians, he's in another school program named Match Your Life, in which students from his school in Taipei meet students from a Jewish school in Ramat Sharon. When I asked Amir what his interaction with the Jews is like for him as an Arab Israeli, he answered that it is much better than what many people might expect it to be. He told me that he has a lot of Jewish friends and that he only had good interactions with Jews in his life. Listening to his answer, I noticed that this young man, just like his mother, is willing to be more open to the world outside of his community. I saw a person with whom you can truly speak and negotiate properly. Learning about Amir's story, where he came from, learning about his family and about his personal life made me understand what shaped him, what made him the person that he is today. And in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, that's the best way to solve a conflict. I learned that only after empathizing and understanding the individuals, the human beings themselves that are on the other side of the conflict, we will be able to come with the best solution for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Oren, and thank you to all of the storytellers. We're going to go about 10-15 minutes more. I want to ask Luna and then Sara to play songs, and then we're going to hear from Ambassador Atia, and finally we will give the Young Diplomat of the Year award. So Luna, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me again? Yeah, I hope you hear my storytelling because I had a technical problem. So yeah, I'm playing on my violin the US anthem. So I hope you like it.
Thank you, Luna. Beautiful. Sara, go ahead.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Sara. I will play for you an Arabic song in my org.
think we lost Sara. Okay, Ambassador Atia. So it is my we'll get Sara back as soon as we can. But it is my great privilege to ask the deputy head of the Palestinian mission to the European Union, and a very good friend and someone I admire, Ambassador Adel Atia, to just offer some reflections on what we've heard from the students.
Thank you very much, Stephen, to give me this opportunity to meet with your with your team. The young people of today, they are the leaders of tomorrow. And I really enjoyed very much following your program since the beginning. And I also wish to welcome my American colleague. It's good to see him participating in these kind of events. And I think this is a good opportunity to call on the American administration to resume financial assistance to the organizations working to bring together Palestinians and Israelis. Some of you, Stephen, you know me since a long time, but maybe some people will ask themselves, what is the Palestinian ambassador is doing here? And why did he involve even his We have a special department a very good well in the Palestinian side to build bridges among the Israeli and the Palestinian society. The second reason is that I profoundly believe that the true peace is made among people. It's not only among governments. In our region, we have unfortunately not yet reached a peace agreement. And this is why it is very important to provide the full support to your work to bring Palestinian and Israelis together, whether those Palestinians are from the occupied territories or from Israel. Thirdly, and look, I am a Palestinian official ambassador, and I'm working to promote and to advocate for the two-state solution. But unfortunately, I have been witnessing that this two-state solution has been dismantling, and we are facing huge difficulties to implement the two-state solution due to our internal situation, due to the internal situation in Israel, due to the context in the Arab world and the context of the international community. I think that building bridges between our civil societies, between our young people, is a very good option in order to bring down the walls and to bring down barriers that has been built among our two communities. In the absence of a perspective of a two-state solution, we should think about something else. And this something else for me is to bring our two people together, to learn them how to live together and to promote the peaceful spirit among our young people. This is why I am really fully, I fully subscribe to your activities, and I'm fully mobilized to support your initiatives, even to push the EU to give more money for these kind of programs in order to facilitate your work and in order to enlarge the number of people that you can recruit from all sides. I'm going to cut it short, Stephen, because I'm jumping between your meeting and the meeting of the European Minister of Foreign Affairs in Berlin. And I can see that the press conference will start in 2 seconds. I therefore thank you for your invitation. And I will also take this opportunity to ask Michal, she is our neighbor, I'm based in Brussels, she's based in the Netherlands, in order to establish contact between her and between my kids in order to check together how we can help you to facilitate your future visit to Brussels. Good luck, thank you very much for the good work. Thank you for all those young people who participate in this program. And please continue, and I hope that you will extend your program to more people from both sides. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Atia. And to finish off the afternoon, for the second year in a row, I want to give an award to recognize outstanding effort and achievement by a student. And this particular student tirelessly pursues knowledge and friendship, seizes every opportunity, builds bridges, is curious, respectful, says yes to everything, and always comes 5 minutes early. It's my privilege to award the 2020 Young Diplomat of the Year award to Luna Abu Yunus.
Thank you. I didn't expect that.
Well,
Thank
the award is in your house somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Oh,
there it is. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Those who have been attending meetings will not be that surprised, but congratulations. And that's it. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for sharing with the Storytelling Project, the delegations, and all of your hard work.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you also.
See you all.